Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Hey, don't forget my pimento cheese. Of course.
It's okay, I'll take it from here.
Hey, the guy get a seat!
For the love of palmetto cheese.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and I'm so excited about this show. I usually wait until the end of the segment to promote it, but I'm going to do it right now. I've got arguably the greatest athlete to ever come out of the city of New Orleans, and I'm going to tell you this, without question in my mind, he's the greatest basketball player to ever play in the city of New Orleans. I'm not going to tell you his name yet, but he's coming up. Also, one of the Saints' greatest offensive linemen in the history of their franchise, and this guy was on the all-century team at the college he played at. That's another hint for you. And also, at the end of the show, I got a special guest, E.T., I'm going to tell you his name. Y'all all know him from the Dirty Dozen Brass Band, but he is certainly one of the greatest horn players to ever come out of the city of New Orleans, and that's saying something. But back to sports. Hey, let's talk about this past weekend. We had 4 Louisiana teams go into the NCAA baseball tournament, and none of them proceeded to the second weekend. Louisiana Tech, University of Louisiana Raging Cajuns, the Southeastern Lions, but the LSU Tigers got the furthest, and they had the craziest weekend in recent memory. They were down 11-4 in the 8th inning against Kennesaw State, and they scored 10 runs in the 8th to win that game 14-11. Fast forward to the next day, down to the number 1 seed, Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles. They were down 6-2 in the 9th. They score 4 runs in the 9th, get another one in the 10th, and there's your celebration by the Tigers. But then they went to the Sunday and Monday games. They had to beat Southern Miss, just one of the two. Sunday they got beat pretty soundly, and then Monday it was a thriller yesterday. They lost 8-7. Congratulations to USM. They will move forward, and I believe they played the Ole Miss Rebels. Hey, let's go to NBA. How crazy has this been? Game 1, one of the craziest games I've ever seen between Golden State and Boston. The Warriors had a 15-point lead with a minute and a half to go in the third quarter. And with a minute to go at the end of the game, in less than 13 minutes, there was a 30-point swing. They were outscored 48-18 by the Celtics, and all kind of things were happening. Steph Curry set an NBA record for three-pointers in a quarter for the finals. He had 6 of them in the first quarter. That 21 points he had in the first, that's the most in an NBA Finals quarter since Michael Jordan did it in the late 90s. And how about also on the other side of it, Al Horford had the dubious record of playing in 141 playoff games without going to the finals. That's an NBA record itself. In his first game in the finals, he scores 26 points, a guy that's averaging less than 10, and he came up big. Boston wins game 1. We all know game 2. That happened 2 days ago, and the Golden State Warriors tied the series. Steph Curry went off for 29 after his 34-point performance in the first one. And by the way, that guy, Jason Tatum, who's the star of the team, he might not have scored a whole lot in game 1, but you know what he did? He had 13 assists. Another NBA record. That's the most in an NBA debut ever. John Stockton, Michael Jordan, and Isaiah Thomas held the record of 12. So all kind of great things. Tomorrow, game 3 will be happening right there in Boston. They go to the Garden. And we'll see. It's going to be a great series. And hockey, we don't talk about it much. But I was in Denver this weekend. The Colorado Avalanche are feverish up there. They swept the Edmonton Oilers last night in overtime. They won 6-5. They're going to the Stanley Cup, and they'll play the winner of the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. That series is 2-1, and that will go to Game 4 tonight. Also, don't forget, the Denver Broncos sold their franchise to Rob Walton from Walmart fame, $4.5 billion. The next American franchise that's next is not even double. It's $2.2 billion, and that was the New Jersey Nets. The Carolina Panthers sold for $2.2 as well. We have a great show. Stay tuned right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. And my next guest, we had about 3 or 4 years ago on the show, but I didn't get enough time with him. So I said, I want to bring this guy back and let people know exactly who he is. When I say the greatest basketball player without question, there's not even a question in my mind, to come from the city of New Orleans and the most heralded to come from the state of Louisiana, that's not an exaggeration, because it is. Karl Malone might be known as the greatest. He's the second leading scorer in NBA history, now third that LeBron just passed him. Joe Dumars, great NBA champion. We know what a great player, and there's been several more. But this guy right here was the 2-time National High School Player of the Year at Newman High School, 3-time state champion while he was there. And by the way, you know how many people have done that? Jerry Lucas back in the 50s, you probably don't even remember him. Played for Ohio State, ended up having a good NBA career, got a title with the Knicks one year in the 70s. But then you had a guy named Lou Alcindor, Power Memorial from New York, now known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, went to UCLA, won a bunch of championships, and obviously a bunch in the NBA as well. And more recently, LeBron James, and then a guy named Greg Oden, who ended up having injuries that shorted his career, which is what happened to Randy Livingston. I want to bring him on right now. Randy, welcome back to the show. I remember seeing you in high school. I was in law school, and I would come down to New Orleans just to watch you play, and it was something else. But do you remember those days?
Yeah, 30 years has passed very quickly, but thanks, Scott, for having me on the show again. It's always great to come spend some time and talk.
That's an iconic shot of you right there.
Oh yeah.
Everybody likes to bring that one out. You guys, you're getting
North Central. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Well, I mean, talk about that. Like, listen, you could have gone anywhere you wanted, and I don't want to get too much into this story, but it's fascinating that people that know, right? Mm-hmm. Recently, Rasheed Wallace, who was a contemporary of yours, class of '93 in high school. Yep. Some people had him as co-player of the year with you one year. But he had a long NBA career, and recently he caught some criticism because he said that Dwayne Wade's career reminds him, the way he played basketball reminds him of a guy named Randy Livingston. And he caught a lot of crap for it, but he was right. Your game, Dwayne Wade, your game was that before your injuries. So you want to comment on that, because I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, it was funny. Right after he made that comment, my inbox is full on Instagram and Facebook. And I think it's a fair comparison. Our game resembled each other. Obviously, he went on and played at a high level in the NBA. I think when they won the championship with Shaq. Yeah.
06? Yeah.
Yeah, 06. That's when I began to say, man, he reminded me a lot of myself. I looked at things he did. He was athletically gifted, and he carried that team. Probably dominated an NBA series like MJ did.
He did. He took it over.
He did.
They were down 13 with 3.5 minutes to go, about to get down 3-0.
Yes.
In that game 3, and I was watching with your friend Dennis Tracy. I remember he was camping out on my couch in Atlanta, and that game turned around on a dime, and the series turned around, and he became a household name after that. Because he was a kid from Marquette. He was a Prop 48. Nobody knew. He wasn't heralded like you, and he changed his whole career with that one game.
No, definitely. I mean, he pretty much was averaging 40 points in that series, a game shooting over like 50, 60% as a guard. And when you look at that draft, you got LeBron and Carmelo, and then Chris Bosh, and then D. Wade. So at the end of the day, I mean, he had a magnificent career, and it was, great that Rasheed, threw me a bone and made people remember.
No, I love it. I love it. It reminded me of when Chris Jackson was brought up recently, because I remember Chris Jackson, once again, when I was in law school and watched this guy, and he was the most electric player I'd ever seen. I'm a Pistol Pete fanatic, but Chris Jackson did it like no one else. And Phil Jackson, the great coach for the Lakers and the Bulls, caught a lot of heat when he said Steph Curry reminds him of Chris Jackson. But once again, if you know, you know, he was right. It's the exact same kind of comparison.
No, very fair comparison. I mean, I actually think Chris was better athletically than Steph is, and more explosive.
No doubt.
But his shot was as pure as butter, and I mean, I think, you know, that's a fair comparison. So it's hard in different eras, but people forget very quickly.
And there's reasons to success. Yours was injuries. His is more of a he became Muslim. He lost a ton of weight, and he became a great player, still averaging 18 to 20, but not the dude that you expected to be a college guy. But I want to take you back to you. I want to see, because everybody knows you went to Newman. And we're local, and we're going to be there around the state. But I don't know if people know how you got there. You know, you grew up in Calliope Housing Project, right?
Yep.
And so you go to the most elite school in the state. Let's be real. I mean, Newman. And there's kind of complain and argue, but it's a fact. You guys, you average like 1,500 on the SATs over there, and that might be low. But the fact is how did this happen? Because you became an icon in the city of New Orleans in basketball, and you chose Newman.
Yeah, to be honest with you, a lot of people don't know this about me. Football was my, love.
Quarterback,
that was my first love. I went to John Curtis.
Right.
And I tell JT this story all the time. I guess in the 7th grade, he let me play JV, and he was like, "Hey, Rand, we want to move you to running back in JV." And I went to one JV game, played running back, and I basically said, "I don't mind getting hit, but not on every play."
Yeah, right.
And then I know, Jeff was coming up behind me, so I actually knew. So Jeff was going to be the quarterback.
Jeff who?
Jeff Curtis.
Oh, Jeff.
His son.
His son. Okay.
So his son. So you had Jeff, who went on to play at Tulane, and then the basketball, Joe Barcelona was the head coach, and his son was the starting point guard.
Right,
so I kind of didn't really see the handwriting. There you go. That's hard to win that family battle.
Stick in the water, buddy.
Yeah. So then after that, I decided, and after the 7th grade year, bus from John Curtis came, Mr. Jackman came to the Calliope Housing Project to pick me up, and I got in the car with Mr. Jackman, and the rest was history.
Well, I'm going to say this. You got 3 state titles, and I know that sounds like, hey, a lot of people, it's hard to win a state title.
No question.
It's hard to win, and you got 3 in high school. Newman has not gotten one until you came back. You're now the head coach of Newman. I probably should have said that earlier. But you won a state title this past year for the first time since you were there. And I remember the days back in, I think it was 79-ish, when Sean Toohey, who still holds, I believe, the SEC record for assists. Newman has a rich history, but talk about your high school years and just going to the school and really changed it. You got over 3,000 points. I mean, you were the man, averaging like 28 points for your career, and that includes 8th grade.
No, definitely. Well, I was blessed to be coached by Coach Fitzgerald. He's a
Billy
great.
Fitz, yes.
Billy Fitz is a great coach. Still, from my coaching now, I follow a lot of things that he did, but it was a great situation. Academics was high. To be honest with you, my freshman year, we had probably the most talent that we ever had at Newman with Coach Fitz's son, Edelman, who went on to play at Ole Miss collegially too. And we lost to a great Varnado team with Kim Lewis.
Was that in the finals?
It was in the quarterfinals.
Okay,
at
I remember how great Kim Lewis was.
Kim was great. And so I just remember that night, just seeing how Edmund, how hard he took it and how hard it is to win a state championship. I had dedicated myself to that year to say that we would never, lose again. And so I worked harder. And then, when we got the chance sophomore year, nobody expected us to do very much. And then I just think through my dedication and hard work, and obviously we had a great coach, like I said, in Coach Fitz, we went on a run in the playoffs where, for me, I would stack that year up against any high school player, whether it's LeBron, whether it's Kareem, Abdul-Jabbar. I would, because I think in that playoff game in 5 games, I think I averaged like 42 points and like 13 rebounds and like 10 assists. I was a sophomore.
You were a sophomore
that year. And so it was just one of those runs that you can't emulate. And then that summer I played in the Boston Shootout, which kind of catapulted.
That puts you on the map, right? That puts you on the map.
100% nationally. So it was a great time. And those 3 state championships were all different, but the first one was very, very sweet. And then the next year, I think we returned all 5 starters, and we were kind of bored, but we knew we were going to win it.
That's when I was watching you pretty regularly, yeah. I want to ask you a question about that because that's when you got on the national map. Now, let me remind people, Jason Kidd and him, Jason Kidd, they were co-players of the year, but this guy was a junior. Jason was a senior, went to Cal for 1 year before becoming a very early pick and obviously a Hall of Famer. But when you see names like that, and you shared a little bit with Rasheed the next year, these guys are NBA champions, those kind of things. What do you think?
Well, it was funny. Somebody sent me recently the top 25 players all time in high school basketball, my name wasn't on the list. So I was not happy about it.
No, you should have been.
Rasheed was on there, Jason Kidd was on there, and well-deserving. They're great guys.
Well, they're combining the rest of the
pro.
career.
Yeah,
right.
for sure. But Greg Oden was on there too, and he didn't have
Right.
So, it's interesting how people make lists, but at the end of the day, what I remember most about those times is that AAU, I had started a name for myself. We won AAU national championships. It was almost like utopia to win 3 straight state championships and then to win every award you can imagine in high school. I won, but just being a high school student and being at Newman, it was special. Like now, obviously, I'm getting a chance. It goes full circle. I'm coaching at Arch Manning, but Peyton and Cooper played with me, and now to be coaching.
We have a shot of you and Peyton. It's great. I mean, not on the basketball court. You're in white.
Yep.
Linen jackets.
Graduation.
It's a great shot right here.
Yep.
I mean, I remember going to a game and he got kicked off the team. And I remember watching him in the stands in Baton Rouge. I was in the Assembly Center, and he's got his arms crossed. You could tell he wants to be out there so bad. Do you remember the game I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely remember that. Now, Peyton was a heady, but tough player, just like he was as a football player. And it was unfortunate that he didn't play that full season. But he's still a great friend of mine. Obviously, been able to coach Arch now, but those memories last a lifetime. We just had our 30th anniversary of the first year we won a state championship, and I brought everybody back for the NIT.
Was Coop on that one?
Yep, Coop was on that, and it was such a great experience just to reminisce how much, you go through as a kid and as a young adult in high school, and then just all the stories about Coach Fitz and going to Lake Charles playing in the Popeyes Classic back then. Right. We were able to reminisce. It was a great time to be able to bring all those guys back.
I think I remember seeing you. By the time you were a senior, you looked like you were playing with some dwarfs. It was like Randy Livingston and the 7 dwarfs. I mean, it was kind of funny because Randy was scoring like 48. The rest of the team had 12. But you were dominant. And then you had a chance to go wherever you wanted. Mm-hmm. And I remember LSU was fresh off of having just a couple years early, obviously Shaq, Stanley Roberts, and we know Chris Jackson, and they have a history of just pulling in great players, even while you were there. Ronnie Henderson, I think Jamie Brandon was in that era. What made LSU be the choice over Duke? And I don't want to get too deep into this, but we all know what happened with your knee injury right before. You had to miss your entire freshman year. But what brought LSU into the picture?
Well, North Carolina and my mom home, my room is still painted Carolina blue.
Right. Loved it too.
Yeah, so that was kind of like my childhood dream school to go to. I had a good conversation, bless his heart, Dean Smith's a great coach, great man. But I asked him, I said, if I beat Derek Phelps out to every day in practice, I wear him out, beat him out, do I have a chance to start? And he stuck to his guns. He said no. And so at that point, I just felt like if I worked hard and I was better, I deserved to play. So then it came down to Kentucky and LSU.
Right.
Patino was at Kentucky with Bill O'Donovan as assistant.
Sure.
And so I figured if I'm going to go to SEC school, I might as well stay home.
Johnny
Jones did a great job recruiting.
I'm looking over your shoulder at the Superdome. It's right there.
Yep.
That year, North Carolina had just won the title right there with an unheralded kind of team. It didn't have a Jordan like when I was in high school. But that's interesting that was your school. They won the title, and you still decided to go LSU. The knee injuries, you only played like 29 games at LSU, and that's the most tragic thing of all time to me. And I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this, because you had the one right before the season, or in the summer, right?
Yep.
And then you came back, you were leading the country in assist, your first year. Leading the country in assist, not just the SEC. Yep. And then you have another knee injury. Take me back.
Yeah, that was tough. I think for a person, like I said, I had a utopian high school career. Never had injuries, never had ankle sprain, and then, got ACL. Before my freshman year, redshirted that year, but actually was playing with the team probably about 5 months in. I was practicing.
Is that Jamie Brandon playing more that year?
Yep, Jamie Brandon played more that year.
Right.
Ronnie Henderson had a great year. And so, at the end of the day, things happen. It was unfortunate. But then I came back and I was stronger, playing really, really well. And, it was weird. I coached on Johnny Jones' staff a few years back.
Got a picture of that?
Yep. I went to Arkansas for the first time. That's where the second knee injury happened. We went to the arena, and it just was an eerie feeling just to be in there for the first time since. For a coach, it was my first time.
15 years later,
yes.
Wow.
It was a surreal moment.
Yeah, we just showed a shot of you coaching at LSU.
Yeah, definitely a surreal moment, but, I survived it, I was blessed, man. I tell people all the time, I did have the injuries. I had a great surgeon, and Dr. James Andrews, who
the
is like a
greatest of all time.
surrogate father to me. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Actually just bought my son this summer to go see him, his house in Birmingham. But I had a great surgeon, and I was still able to play 11 years in the NBA. So it wasn't probably what most people would have thought, and what I would have liked it to be at my very best, to compete at the best in the world. But as a competitor, you know, I would have liked to have played against Jason Kidd, played against the best point guards, and as healthy.
Does that eat at you?
It doesn't eat at me, but you know, sometimes you reminisce that, you know, you would have liked to seen what that would have looked like.
No doubt.
And
no doubt.
I'm a competitive person. I felt like I always worked extremely hard, and I would have figured it out. But at the end of the day, you know, the world's funny like that. I got to play with Jason Kidd in Phoenix, and still got to play against him every day. So like my dream to play against him every day, I was around him when he was in Milwaukee with his coaching staff. He let me come and help coach and assist. So like those relationship things happen for a reason, but I really, you know, would have relished playing against all those guys.
You mentioned that, okay, I'm gonna bring up something you don't even remember. I met you twice before we became friends years later. And I was doing Hawks games. This was the second time I met you.
Yep.
You came in, and I remember thinking you were rolling, dude. You were starting games.
Mm-hmm.
You were a factor on that team, and they were up and coming, and it was fun to watch. But I remember coming before the game, and I'm like, hey man, I grew up uptown Dallas Style, and we were talking about that. But I had met you before. You were 8th grade, and I was playing. I graduated high school, college. Come back to Louisiana for a little bit before we moved to D.C. and hanging out with a bunch of the guys like John Drennan Newman, and we would all play at the Palestra. It was just built not long before that, and we were playing after y'all would practice. And Fitz came over, and there's this 8th grader I want you to see. We want you to jump in the game. We're like, come on, dude. All of us had played high school ball. We're not like 8th grade. Dude, he came in and you did a baseline jam on. I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
That's funny.
I mean, it was like then I said. And you know, you don't think of an 8th grader going to the NBA, and I've looked at him. I'm like, this kid's going to the NBA. I mean, did you know in 8th grade? Did you have an idea?
I think I've gotten a lot better. And then AAU basketball is kind of an indicator because you see all the guys around the country. I had seen Stackhouse. I had seen Jeff McGinnis. I had seen some of the guys that I later played in the McDonald's game with. And you know, my little team was just local New Orleans guys, and we won 4 AAU national championships in a row.
Wow.
And so it was, you know, so you kind of, I had an idea, but like I said, I just worked extremely hard, and then that was just the results. That, you know, I had some talent, I had great coaching, and I was blessed, man. I won't lie to you. I would first to say that I was blessed during those years to be able to compete at the highest levels possible. And
also to play 11 years with those injuries shows me the other thing. I mean, if you don't have this up here and the willpower, nobody's going to do that. Do you actually remember how many pro jerseys? I'm not talking about just NBA, pro jerseys you wore? Because I think I have an idea in my head if you don't.
I probably
Give me
11.
A guess.
I would say 11 or 12. I think I played different teams every year. Maybe 13. A couple years I played Seattle twice.
Well, I'm not doing twice. You have 9 NBA.
Okay. Yep.
9 NBA jerseys.
There you go.
You had the Sioux Falls. Obviously, in the CBA. You're a CBA legend. Let's go ahead and say that. And obviously, big time in Boise with the Idaho Stampede.
Yep.
Then you had it overseas somewhere.
Turkey.
Starts with an M.
Galatasaray.
Yeah.
Was with that team.
And one escapes me, but we have like a potpourri of NBA things. When you think about your NBA career, Phoenix, obviously you drafted by Houston, right?
Yep.
You got in some fun with Charles Barkley.
Yep.
I mean, what's that like? I mean, coming in, then you go to Phoenix. Can you even name the 9 NBA teams off the top of your head?
All right. Yep. I think I can go.
You don't have to do it in order. Just give me that.
Okay. Houston.
Yeah.
Then I went to Atlanta.
Yep. I was there.
People don't know I was with Golden State when we were a bad shooting team.
Right.
And all the guys got paid for rebounding.
So you remember that one? That's the one I think you get.
Utah.
All right.
Chicago.
Right.
Seattle twice.
Right.
Where we at? 6?
Yeah.
New Orleans.
There you go. The Hornets. We got some Hornet action for. There you go, right there.
And I played mostly Western Conference team. It was only Chicago was the only East Coast team I played with. Orlando I went to training camp with. Miami I went to training camp with.
I mean, I'm not going to write. You said Utah and Denver? Or no, not Denver.
Not Denver. Seattle.
Yeah. Anyway.
Twice.
There's by the way, that
Clippers.
last shot, the Clippers. That's the one.
Clippers.
There's a shot we just showed of you guarding a guy that I graduated the same year of, Avery Johnson, another New Orleans legend. That's you, one of the 3 sons going up and at him.
Yep.
Avery's a little bitty guy that, by the way, never started in high school ever. I mean, Donald Royal was the guy on that team.
He was the guy, yep.
And there you are with the Clippers.
Yep.
But, you know, I love that picture for one because I'm a proud New Orleans guy, and I love seeing, you know, two guys in the NBA going at it.
Yep.
Did you know much about him at that point? Because I mean, he came kind of nowhere, and then he won that title in '99 and kind of became a household name. But that was, I believe, before that.
Yeah, let me tell you a quick story about Avery.
Yeah.
So when I got hurt the second time, I get back to Baton Rouge. I had a note that he had mailed to me from a hotel that he had been staying in. And it meant a lot to me because somebody that between Jaren Jackson, the Robert Packs,
Yes.
and then Avery Johnsons of the world.
All New
they
Orleans
were
legends.
New Orleans legends, but
Right.
NBA journeymen. And
Right.
then they got their shot and they stuck. So for him to write me after I got hurt in Arkansas, you know, meant a lot to me. But then when I made it to the NBA, my first game was against the Spurs here. We played in New Orleans, and but then throughout my career, the one thing every time I saw him, he was just like, Randy, no matter how many times, because you said how many jerseys, but I always look at, I got cut over 22 times in my NBA
So did he,
career.
by the way. He got cut a million times.
And
You
that
won't
was his
forget that.
message. His
Yes.
message was keep the bags packed, keep it moving until you find your niche. And so that meant a lot to have guys that had done it before me. And those three just stand out to me because, you know, they were guys that I looked up to when I was in middle school.
That's a great story, man.
So yeah, he's a great guy, and obviously he's went on to do great things, champion, and you know he's coached in the NBA, coached in college. So you know he's somebody that I definitely look up to, and I really appreciate it when I got that note when I got hurt. You know, so that something that giving back is important, and I think
No, it
those
really
guys
is.
get it.
And you've given back in more ways than people don't have any idea about. I mean, I'm not. Not just basketball, but basketball is a big part of it. You do things for others, and I think that needs to be said. But, you know, you came out recently, about less than a year ago, with the undefeated. I think it was the undefeated.
My good
Mark
New Orleans,
Spears.
Mark Spears.
Mark Spears, great guy. I love him. And this article here, and listen, I've gambled a bunch in my life, and we've all had fun. I mean, the stories. I have a picture of you. You put this out of that shot at your. Talk about this right here, because this is interesting to me.
Yeah, it's early. I mean, for me.
You're in high school.
Yep, I'm in high school, but it started real early than that. You know, in most of the black households,
Well, explain
most
what
people
this
gamble.
picture is. Nobody's going to know.
Well, we're headed to Washington, D.C. on our 9th grade trip, and I got introduced to poker. And where I grew up in the projects, nobody played poker. We played tonka, pity pad, or they shot dice.
Right, yeah.
They shot dice. So I got introduced to poker, and beginner's luck, I won a lot of money on that trip. And but, you know, every step of the way of a gambler, you get introduced to something else, just like gateway drugs or gateway to drinking, whatever. It's all, you know, an addiction, and you know that was just a step to playing something that I never played growing up.
How hard was this to come out? Because we're not talking sports betting. We're not talking fixing games. We're talking about he loves numbers, cards. He knows how to do it.
Yep.
Like this went on, and the NBA is the hardest play. I've been on many team planes, right? I've watched this.
Yeah,
the Hawks are they're a little nicer than most, but like Steve Smith, they all get into the games, and you travel regularly to games, you see it all. And there'll be some dust-ups.
No,
you know,
for sure it is.
Because if you lose a lot and somebody ribs you, it goes the wrong way.
No question.
Tell me about the NBA, because money doesn't mean much. You know, you might be an NBA minimum player compared to these guys where losing $20,000 ain't going to mean much, like a Barkley.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Well, for me, the hardest part about coming out is just the stigma, right? I think, and to destigmatize gambling is important to me at this point in my life. It's kind of what I want.
There's no stigma in my mind whatsoever, but I know a lot of people out there probably think about it.
They do, yeah.
Right.
Well, when you're an athlete or you're somebody that's in the limelight or in the public light, I think, you know, it's hard to deal with the fact that you have a problem.
Right.
And most of the time, what most athletes do is they try to fix it themselves. I had got to a point in my life where I couldn't fix it. I probably never could fix it. I probably thought I could, but never could. And once it gets out of hand and it spirals, you don't know how to fix it. I did go to the NBA at a point and try to get help, but at the point in my career, there wasn't really any sort of help for gambling. They had alcohol and substance abuse still with John Lucas.
Did you help bring this?
Senator.
Yes, right.
No, I help. I think, man.
Because it's an issue, especially now the NBA.
It's bad, man.
I was at WWL. I mean, listen, all they talk about is gambling now, and it used to be
Have you seen the TNT show? That's all. I mean,
all it
whether
is.
it's on ESPN or whatever, FanDuel. So kids, what I'm most concerned about is like they're younger kids getting addicted to gambling. I'm talking about middle school. And so it's a taboo topic. Not a lot of sports teams, and hopefully in a new documentary that's going to come out, we're going to explain a lot of the stuff that I went through. But at the end of the day, all of the professional sports are making so much money. I'm talking about billions and billions off of sports gambling that
it's unbelievable.
They don't really want to touch it and deal with it. But to me, it's falls in line. It's not like as big as a pandemic, but it's a health crisis. There's people that are really, really struggling out there. And that was part of my reason for coming out, is to get people to understand that there's help out there.
Listen,
there's help for people.
It must have been a lonely road because it's not a tangible. Obviously, people, we don't see you in a gutter, right?
Yeah.
But you're struggling inside because that's all you're thinking about. That's what addiction's about. If it's on your mind nonstop.
100%.
And how was it going through that? And with being married and you're trying to hide things. I mean, if I'm getting too personal.
No, you're good. No, the addiction is tough. You deal with everything. You deal with guilt. You deal with, it breaks up families, relationship with kids. And probably the most important thing is time. Like the time you spend in the casino, the time you spend thinking about it. I used to think when I was coaching early on in my coaching career that it didn't affect me, but I was just fooling myself. There's no way you could go on a losing binge at a casino and then come and be your very best as a coach. It's no way. You can say it.
Zero chance.
You're not the best
You're
for
lying
the kids,
to yourself.
100%.
Right.
And I realized that I wasn't given to the game of basketball that I love my all. And for me, it was important for me to come out. I had conquered it, and I take it a day at a time. But what I really want to really emphasize in this is that for anybody that out there struggling, I had some politician friends that I've helped, and it's okay to get help.
It's okay, man.
It's okay. And once you get help, it's still up to you. It's an individual a disease and addiction that you have to deal with and conquer. I could help the next person start to get help, but until they continue to do it and continue to work on themselves, it's up to them. And I just got to a point where I just want to help people and let them know that they aren't alone. Like, as most addiction people think they're alone, and they don't understand that there's a lot of people going through this.
And then they're taking that first step because the stigma, and you think, what are people going to think about me? I'm alone in this thing. This is.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to add to that is that, like, people think, like, what are people going to think? I think the day I did come out and share, I gained, I guess, a piece of who I am, true to me on my inside, who I am back. I think people, I got so many, not only compliments, but people called me and said, not only you were brave, you're going to help out a lot of people. And that felt good, right? To be, for so long, you're trying to hide it, you're ashamed, you got guilt, all this stuff. But then to be at a place where I can help others is what I've always been about. And this is just another chapter in the legacy of my life. And, I hate to say it, and I think people are overlooking. There will be a crisis soon in professional sports over this gambling stuff. It's just a matter of time.
It's happening. We know.
I just hope that we're prepared to help people deal with it, and that the leagues, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's NFL, whether it's the NBA, whether it's soccer, no matter what sport it is, they have the infrastructure to deal with it and equipped to help.
This is going to be a great part of your legacy. I'm going to tell you this right now. People might not know it now, but this, like you said, there's going to be some. Speaking of your legacy, I'd be remiss not to say this. Your son, you got children.
Yep.
I know you got one coming up with your name, Randy Livingston Jr. There he is. And then, by the way, also Newman, with what they've done with this program, with guys like Chris Lockett, right?
Yep.
Todd Jones, Lehman. You got
Jefferson.
And Kanan Jefferson. Listen, to win a state title is hard, and congratulations to that. But talk about your son real quick as we go. We're going to sign this ball because I want to get a big Randy Livingston on this as opposed to on the basketball where people can't see it on that thing.
I think I found it right there.
You got it. That's you?
Yeah.
We're going to do this, but I'll talk about your son real quick as we go, and I'm going to give you a Taz shirt. Another one of your teammates, right?
Yep, Todd Andrews.
Todd Andrews, that's Taz Performance. Todd and Al Andrews and Scott and Cindy.
Yep.
We give shirts out. But I want to thank you also, but talk about your son.
Nah, he's great. Most recently, he's been able to play for the AU's organization, Live On Florida League.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary to just watch his mannerism, his walk, the way he controls himself on the game.
What
I mean,
age
it's like
group?
watching the ghost. He's in 8th grade going into 9th grade next year.
Right.
So he played 8th grade early in the summer, and then we moved him up to 15U, and he did a great job this weekend. My other co-director in there said, hey, we may want to move him up to 16U, and he's gotten better. He's athletically overnight. He's gotten to where I feel like I'm comfortable with him, and just his mind. He's been around basketball since he was a type just getting around.
I need an hour with you, man, because listen, I wanted to get into your team because I watched a few of the games. They're special, but I love you, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Anytime.
When I say these
I can come back on anytime, so you just let me know.
When I say these words, I mean, he is the best player to come out of this city without question. Could be the best overall athlete, period. Peyton Manning, his teammate, might have something to say about that, but that's how good and special this guy is, and I want to thank you once again. Hey, coming up next, Brad Edelman, another guy who, by the way, is on an all-century team. On an all-century team for a college. I don't know, that's not easy to do. He's coming up next. He's a former Saint. He was the 30th overall pick in 1982, started for 8 straight seasons with the Saints before retiring. But he's next on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Hey, don't forget my pimento cheese.
Of course. It's okay. I'll take it from here.
Hey, you forgot your seat.
For the love of palmetto cheese.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports, and we're going to shift gears from the hardwood to the gridiron, but we're going to go beyond the gridiron with our next guest, who was a Saint from 1982 to 89. He saw a 500 season early in his career. He saw a few losing seasons, and then he got used to winning with 2 different head coaches with the New Orleans Saints. His name is Brad Edelman. He was on the first year I did the show. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you very much. It's always great to see you, and it's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up.
It's been 6 years. I know after we had some coffee, you gave me a print, which is hanging. Photographer, you're a Renaissance man. So what's been going on, buddy?
Renaissance, I'm not sure, but I have several different passions, and
Yes.
I've always been thankful for that. The ones that remain with me are photography, which I did professionally for many years.
Sure.
But now I do creatively, and when my body allows me to get out and do the kind of shooting I like to do. I still sculpt, which is something I took up
Very
way
cool.
back at the University of Missouri,
Right.
which we discussed, and I'm doing a little bit more of that these days as I'm finding myself back in the space that it takes to make that
Let's
happen.
take you back to Missouri, because I want to remind people who Brad Edelman is. This guy, if it was today's day, you'd be a first-round pick. You were the 30th overall pick for the Saints in 1982, coming off, a couple not-so-good seasons. The Saints obviously went 1-15 one of those seasons. But you came in the year after, like, Ricky Jackson. And I don't think people know this. Besides being the 9th, well, first of all, you were the 30th pick, but only 9 of those 30 picks made the Pro Bowl, and you were one of them. And I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know.
And Mike Munchak was the first offensive lineman that year, and he was obviously a Hall of Famer. But you made the Pro Bowl, and only 9 of those 30 before you made it as well. But here's the other thing. This guy sitting next to me, there's certain things called all-decade teams, right? Willie Roaf made the NFL's all-decade team in the 90s with the Saints, and he also made it in the 2000s with the Chiefs. This guy was on an all-century team, which is unbelievable. When you talk about a guy that's being on a school's all-century team at the University of Missouri, when you got that honor, I have to ask you, because that's a big deal. Missouri's a big-time program. They were a Big 8 when you were there. Obviously, they're a Big 12, and now the SEC. What was that like?
Well, it was very gratifying. It's always nice to be thought of among the many of the most successful folks at what you do, and so I was very thankful for that honor, and to be top 100. What was it, for 100 years or the 100
years?
100 years.
Come on, man.
Well, that's even
I mean, that's something. I want you to. I mean, I know you're a humble guy. I know that about you, but I'm going to brag for you. That's something else. That's a special thing. So you should be feeling proud about that. You came in though. You played some hoops too. I got a picture of you in hoops.
I love basketball.
And that was my favorite sport too. But look at the dude, man.
Oh,
this
man,
is
where you got that out of my yearbook?
Look at you.
You had to.
Yeah, and north. It's like Is it Parkview North?
Parkway North.
Parkway North. Parkway North. Like Parkway Tavern. I should remember.
Yeah.
So talk about your athletic career in high school, because you did some track, I believe.
Yeah.
Football, basketball. I mean, you say you love basketball.
I love basketball. Always my favorite sport to play.
Nice.
If I had the same talent in basketball, I may have gone that direction.
Right,
if
sure.
the opportunities were there, but it wasn't. But I played basketball, played football, ran track. When I say ran track, threw the shot and discus.
Yeah, right.
Did do
You did
high
the field
hurdles,
part.
some,
Oh, you did
and
hurdles,
did high
okay.
jump at one time.
Nice.
Even tried a pole vault, but just tried it. Never got.
How tall are you, by the way?
I was 6'6" at my tallest, and now I'm about 6'5".
So you lost an inch. Okay.
I think so.
So that Saints offensive line, I want to take you back, because you had Jim Dombrowski, Stan Brock, I mean, Steve Court, help me out, Louis Oubre.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some names. I mean, people think, the Saints had some transition during those years, but that offensive line was steady throughout, and y'all were very good.
It was a great line to come into. John Hill was the center.
John Hill was the center, right.
And I was a center at Missouri.
Right.
So when I came here, they tried me at different positions. I think Bum said later that they had always intended for me to play guard.
Right.
But in fact, in training camp, they put me out at left tackle.
Oh, boy.
To see how I could do.
Coming from center and left tackle, that'd be a transition.
And he said, thankfully, they were not anticipating me to be able to work that spot going from the center position, but they wanted me to get used to it, and then they would move me back in the middle, kind of transition me into the guard spot.
Right.
Where I can still be active, pulling left and right and so forth, but not be on that island, especially from a center spot where you've got people on both sides.
There's few guys. You brought up Bum Phillips, who obviously had most of his success with the Houston Oilers. Love you, Blue. Earl Campbell, great. Right. He came to New Orleans, after the 1-15, and he brought this back to respectability. People forget this, that he had losing seasons. Of course, there he is with George Rogers, his first-round pick that year that Ricky Jackson was taken. But he got the team almost to the playoffs. I mean, it was a field goal away. They were 8-8. I remember the kicker it might have been Lansford or whoever it was. Whoever the kicker was at the time for the Rams, kicks the field goal, keeps the Saints out of the playoffs, and then, the next 2 seasons. But you're one of the few people I can ask this, because you actually, half your career was with one coach, Bum, and then the other half was with Jim Moore and the Saints' first winning experiences. So what was the differences like? Because they couldn't be more different from the outside looking in.
Well, it is a contrast in styles and in culture.
Right.
I would say that Bum was always known as more of a player's.
And there's Jim.
Because there's Jim. I have a great deal of respect for Jim Mora.
And there's
Bum. Okay, we'll go back to Bum.
We're going back and forth. We're going to go back and forth the whole time.
I have a great deal of respect for both of those gentlemen. I played under Bum first. Bum drafted me.
What was he like?
But, Bum was people say down to earth. You can't get any more down to earth than Bum. He was a wise man, though, and he'd been around the game a long time. I benefited from Bum in his later years as a young athlete, because he imparted to me various wisdoms. Told me not to work too hard, because I had a tendency to overdo things, which is a lesson I learned early in my career, is that, you need to work hard all the time, but you also have to rest.
Pace yourself
give yourself a chance to rebuild. And,
right.
And so, and we had fun. I had fun playing under Bum Phillips. It was a team family.
Yeah.
We had country singers and pickers from Nashville come in during training camp.
on the team, right? I mean,
Kenny Stabler, a guy we grew up watching, and Kenny ended up being our QB. Now, Kenny couldn't couldn't run around the field anymore.
He was no longer the snake.
No, he's no longer the snake. No,
he was the statue.
But it was wonderful to protect him, and all of us felt an urgency in protecting Snake back then. So unfortunately, we couldn't get the ball down the field. We had a great defense, as I'm sure you'll
patrol
describe,
came on later, right on, yeah.
Later on, but under Bum, we still had a good defense. We had
you really did. You're right.
He liked punishing runners. He got George Rogers in the first round.
Great running back, right?
Great running back. I used to love to see George barreling by me in the
first overall
line.
pick in the draft. That's what happens when you go 1-15. You get that best running back,
right.
And he was special. He had over 1,600 yards his rookie year, and that might have been the year before you.
Yes, it was.
But he was still a great running back, and it must be a good feeling when you got a guy, when you make a block, you know this back's good. Like Alvin Kamara right now with the Saints. If you make a good block for him, he's going to go.
Yes. And just to see them whiz by, it was a great thing. George went on to play.
He's doing it right there.
There he is. All right.
He's whizzing by. He's about to.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Great producing in the back there.
And, of course, later he brought in Earl Campbell, who was well past his prime.
Sure.
Loved Earl, but well past his prime.
My favorite of all time, actually.
And Earl looked as though he was, he was hurting so badly every time he got up from being tackled back then. So we didn't have a powerhouse offense. We could run over people. We could play with people. Our strength was our defense, but we really couldn't stretch the field on people in my early years. But we loved playing together. It was a wealth of talent that Jim Mora was able to utilize when he stepped into the role in '85.
I mean, I love seeing these shots of you and Dombrowski opening the seas for the running backs getting through. Then you had Jim Mora. First of all, you had the sale of the team. And I wonder, as a player, what goes through people's minds. And I'm going to take you back to that. John Meekum owned the team. And I know you don't get into the business side, but you hear the teams getting sold to a car dealer. All right? I mean, let's be honest. That's what Tom Benson was. He made his millions selling cars. And thank goodness he bought the team, because the franchise went in a different direction. He made a fortuitous hire in Jim Finks, the general manager, who brought in Jim Mora, the head coach, and then immediate success. So what is that like in a player's mind, seeing this new coach, a Marine who comes from the USFL and had success there and brings in a Cajun quarterback? I want to know what it's like from your eyes right there from that era.
Well, we were certainly hopeful. And Jim came with a record of success, and so did Bobby when he brought him to town. We certainly knew we had the core of what could be a really good team. And I think it just took Jim coming to town to say, let's play the kind of football where we are going to, if nothing else, eliminate our mistakes.
Right.
We're going to be the best team that we can be, regardless of what talent we have, and let's see if we can make some changes. And we did. We ultimately became. First of all, in Pittsburgh, we broke our losing streak. Finally, became an 8-8 team.
Right.
And then we started having some winning seasons.
You won 9 games in a row. I mean, like that. All of a sudden, I mean, as a kid that grew up, I say this all the time on the show, but with 2 and 12 seasons back in the 14-game schedule, and obviously the 1 and 15 later on, but winning was not, we weren't used to it. So all of a sudden, y'all were winning regularly, and you had a really good defense and a very solid offense. And, you know, those were your last 4 years. So you went to your first playoff game, the Saints' first playoff game ever. Yeah. That had to be something special. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to transition a little bit because I want to get into your other career, because to me, that's special. You're one of the few guys I know that can leave the game, and I know you did some things. You sang. I mean, you're part of a band back in the day. But how did you get into photography? Because I'm very curious about this, because you have some of the coolest stuff I've seen. I'm not saying that because you're sitting here. If I didn't know your name at all, I just look at some of this stuff, and it's anybody can take pictures, right? But some of the things I was looking back yesterday, and this is some music stuff right here, but there's going to be some shots of, you know, off of a car in the French Quarter, the glare, and it's just amazing. But talk to me about your career, your second career, one of your second careers.
Well, photography was something that I got into in about my late 30s, early 40s, and I had moved from New Orleans to Los Angeles to pursue entertainment. I had done it here, plays, theater, commercial, TV works, broadcasting, and I thought, well, if I want to get it out of my system, and see if I ever want to pursue it at a higher level. I need to go out there and do it. So I took off. I went.
Did
to
you
Los
always have
Angeles.
a thought that you want to do theater and things like that on TV?
No.
When did that come around?
That happened about mid-'80s, about mid-career for me here in New Orleans, when I was asked to perform in some theater productions at a local church here in town that did an annual production. And it was a big production, and it was something that I just had a lot of fun with and enjoyed. People say they got bit by the bug. Well, I was bit by the bug. It would create another creative outlet, and it's something I went with and just became part of a whole new community, the artistic
See, I love it. I did plays all through high school and college, and I'm going to say this: in the locker room, when you were doing this, was it out? Did your teammates know what you were doing on the side?
Several of them did. Yeah. I didn't get too much ribbing.
No, I was about to say, what's the locker room like? Because it's a whole different world in that locker room.
Well, it wasn't big time either. It wasn't like we were in LA and I was doing some big production. So I think all the ribbing was mostly for fun and gentle. Wasn't too much. But I don't actually remember. It doesn't stand out that much to me.
So you spent almost a decade in the Quarter. Now you're more of an uptown guy, the Carrollton area, which is, I know that area well, growing up around there. Yeah. So what's it like being, now you're a New Orleanian, there's no doubt. I mean, I know you're from St. Louis, and, you claim that as a hometown, but you're a New Orleanian, you're one of us. What's it been like, the transitions of neighborhoods and where you've lived?
That's been a great pleasure about being in New Orleans. When I say that, I mean the neighborhoods of New Orleans.
Yeah.
The fact that we have these very distinct neighborhoods with their own color and texture and flavor, and their own restaurants and coffee shops.
That's you take a picture and then reflects. I love that shop.
Down on Royal Street.
Yeah.
And I love to have lived in several different neighborhoods. I've been in the Bywater, I've been in the French Quarter, I've been now uptown in the Carrollton River Road area. I've been down near Camp Street and Magazine. Or not Camp and Magazine, but Camp and Felicity.
Yeah, that's where I met you for coffee, right there. Right. We went to Mojo. Right on.
And, I just love it. And I love the lifestyle that I have right now, where I can walk out of my dorm within a few feet, be at a coffee shop or restaurant, or something to do, entertain myself.
Do you still go listen to music and stuff?
I do go listen to music, not as frequently. I listened to so much music and photographed so much music while I was working professionally in photography. And I love music. That's one of the reasons I love photography. It kept me around music. With photography, I was able to be around a lot of things that I enjoyed. Music was one of them. And so I'm not sure where we're going here, but music was always a passion.
I'm about to hand you a football because you signed one of these before, but I want to get a big Brad Edelman signature that I can see one day. And ironically, my next guest is on a ball I'm looking at right there. But give me that real quick, and I'm going to give you also something else because you're one of my favorite guys. Seriously.
Hey, Rockin' Doopsie even made this ball.
Rockin' Doopsie's on that ball?
Baby.
You never know who's going to be on these balls. People are kind of surprised sometimes. I'm going to give you a bigger size on this because I've got a shipment coming in this week, but I'm going to hand you a Tash shirt and give you a bit bigger one, and I'm going to give you a couple because you're going to love these. I don't know if you remember we got this last time. I don't know if did you want to get back then? Because you might have been too early. We started doing this about 5 years ago. We give these Task Performance shirts out.
Yeah, because I was 6 years ago last time.
Yeah, you were 6 years. You might have got a restaurant gift certificate. But I want to thank you, Brad. I mean, there's so much more I could get into, but that saves it for another time I can have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're truly one of these guys that make me smile when I see you and talk to you. You always seem to have that happy demeanor about you.
Well, I look forward to catching up with you more, too.
Don't lose it.
Pleasure.
By the way, I don't know if any of you know the Sklar brothers, because they're some of my favorite comedians. Did you know this, that they're alumnus of your high school? Look them up. They did the cheap seats on ESPN for years, but the Sklar brothers are two twins that are phenomenally funny. I watched them do a show. I went to a Michigan game not long ago. And I was looking at all the alumni. You got a lot of good alumni at your school as well. Hey, I want to thank Brad, just a true Renaissance man in my mind. Dude, the guy does theater. He was doing some TV, photography. He was singing in a band. I mean, this guy does it all. And not to mention, he's on the All-Century team at the University of Missouri. That says enough right there. We had one of the greatest basketball players in the history of Louisiana sports on, and now Brad. And then coming up next, we have one of the best torn players I've ever seen in my life. He's been here before. He used to be with the Dirty Dozen brass band for almost 4 decades. His name is Efrem Towns. E.T. is what his friends call him. And he's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
Sundays at 6:30 p.m.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I want to thank Brad and Randy for coming on. You know, we go through things in life, and people sometimes don't have any idea. We talked to Irvin Johnson 2 weeks ago, and he was getting emotional talking about his story. Before he got famous, his stuff was on the street, and tears were strolling down his face, and then he becomes a 13-year NBA player, and we don't even know that backstory. Randy Livingston was just telling us about his struggles with gambling addiction, and he went on for decades until he finally got help, and he came clean, just, had the story told literally just a few months ago. And then that's been since 2017 is when he got help. Well, our next guest, man, has been one of my favorites. He was on my very first show with Delvin Breaux, the Saints, Jabari Greer, Lion Gell, and all these other people, Tim Brando. But this guy's been with the Dirty Dozen Brass Band for 4 decades. In 2017, he left the band. He'd been doing it on his own. His marriage ended. His dog got stolen, his beloved Schnauzer. And then his son, Efrem Towns Jr., died. Efrem E.T. Towns is an icon in the city. He's right here, and he's half the guy. Besides losing all those things, he's lost 100 pounds. This is what we call a teaser because I'm bringing you on for a full interview, but I wanted people to see you. And real quick, man, talk real quick about your metamorphosis from what I just explained in 2017, which you went through, to where you are now.
All right.
And welcome, by the way. All right.
Welcome back, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here always. And like 2017, you know, everything, you go through things in life, but 2017 was a real point in my life where, wow, you know, how do you come through this, right? You know, like I told Scott, it's like 50-50 when I look at it. You know, my relationship with the Dirty Dozen, you know, after 40 years,
Dirty Dozen Brass Band is a legendary band, which you were the front man for. It wasn't just like you were the guy that they came to see and everybody else with the brass.
It was pretty much, you know. So Dirty Dozen after 40 years, and you know, to the travels and all around the world. So it was pretty cool. I met a lot of good experiences, a lot of great people. Well, that came to end, and then I got divorced later on in August 2017. Yeah. And then, you know, come the end of the year, my male Schnauzer, he gets stolen. His name was MacGyver. MacGyver was stolen. That was December 10th. It was on a Sunday. The Saints was getting ready to play.
Back-to-back tragedies, and then...
And then the kicker, Christmas Day, we didn't hear from my son. And he was living in his apartment in New York, and all his friends had went to visit their families for the Christmas holidays, and he was up in his apartment by himself, and he died of an aneurysm from blood clot from his leg to his lung in his sleep. And then finally, I figured he passed away December 22nd, the early morning, because he did a Christmas party where he sung, and then we found him, you know, wow, so that was a shock.
This is 4.5 years it's been. So what's that been for you? Because I used to see you all the time, and I haven't seen you much. What's that been? I don't have a ton of time because we're going to get into this in about a month. But what's that been like? What's your metamorphosis been?
Oh, it's been a lot of like soul searching, you know, finding, you do a lot of things in life, and then you never really find out who are you. And I guess it's not for us to find out, but to try to be a bigger person than you think you owe it to yourself in society to be. I've come to that conclusion. It's more things to offer in life than what I get. I've been very famous. I've done a lot of good things and stuff.
You've been around the world many times, and
but I found out this life thing is much bigger than me.
It's much bigger, man.
It's much bigger than me.
It's much bigger than you. Give us a horn real quick, because what your mood is right now, because we're going to go to break now.